I don't know how to explain it, but they're like sober events. We
Hmm.
provide non-alcoholic drinks, and I always feel high on life after.
Hmm.
It feels like I'm drunk or on drugs or something because it just fills me up with so much energy.
How lucky are we that we get to put on this great event or invest in this community, and we know and we just trust that it'll come back? What better investment is
Yeah.
there is like
Yeah.
the school of life. So you are trying an
Yeah.
entrepreneurial venture and you are going out there and you're learning how to use tools that you've probably never touched before. You're just using life as your teacher.
You don't have to have all the details lined out, but just starting is better than never starting. Your 70% effort, why you might think it's not your best, it's better than 0% not doing it at all, or even some people's 100%.
Soulfull is a community founded by Taylor Hamilton and Caroline Ball with the intent of fostering meaningful and authentic connection, incorporating more play into life, and elevating local businesses and creatives in San Francisco. They grew up in Fresno, California, but had not seen or spoken to each other for over 8 years until they both found themselves moving to San Francisco at the same time and reconnected as roommates. The women quickly realized that they shared a passion for building community, and since launching Soulfull in January of this year, they have hosted multiple events around the city, including a Vibe Alchemy event featuring yoga, meditation, and music at the beach, as well as a clothing swap. Some upcoming events will include a pickleball tournament and monthly coffee chats with different members of the community. Tune in to such a lovely conversation about making friends in your 20s, the importance of community, starting a business on top of your day job, and pursuing what lights you up.
I just started this new tradition where I ask each guest at the end a question to ask the next guest. So I have a question that I'm going to start out with. So, yeah, so the question is, what would you do if you could do anything you wanted and it would automatically be successful and no one would be mad at you for doing it?
Ooh.
That's a really nuanced question.
Like, my honest answer is I think what we're doing now, but just make it bigger
Yeah.
and start doing retreats and having a blog and a podcast and a merch line and just all of that because that fills my soul up and that makes like me so happy it's not even work. So I think I would honestly do that.
Yeah, obviously that's my answer too. I think more too with just if I could quit my job tomorrow and didn't have to worry about money and anything, I would be lean more into writing. I really love
Writer.
writing. We do have a newsletter, part of Soulful, and probably will incorporate more of that. But I would just go travel the world and write, I think.
That sounds amazing. Hopefully one day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, love that. Love those answers. That's like a perfect segue into talking about Soulful. Okay, I am curious if you guys could talk about the story of your friendship and then what you each do for work right now as your day job, and then ultimately your motivations for starting Soulful. This was it January?
Yeah, feels like way
Okay.
longer. But yeah,
I
it's
know.
crazy. It's only been a couple months. We launched in January. Yeah, I'll start it off. So Taylor and I have known each other like our whole lives. So we grew up in Fresno, California, and went to school together, like K through high school. And we were like the best friends that never knew it. And I mean that because we had a lot of overlap and a lot of similar interests, and we always got along really well, but we weren't really like close friends ever for whatever reason. I think we just both marched to the beat of our own drum. I was actually living in Ohio a couple years ago, and it was just this weird intuitive feeling that I had that I was like, you know what, I've spent some time in the Midwest, but I'm ready to get back to California. And I just had the thought of, I kind of want to live in San Francisco. And I was working in insurance sales at the time, which is what I still do. But randomly out of nowhere, once I had that thought, I got headhunted by a recruiter for a new job for a similar competitor of what I was doing in San Francisco. And so here I was. And then shortly after that, Taylor was also on a journey.
Yeah, I was living in San Diego before working for sales for Grubhub. And I did a solo adventure around South America where I was working remote and I kind of wanted something more. So I was just putting it out to the universe that I maybe wanted to work in a tech industry, maybe move. I was really open to really whatever kind of came my way. And a recruiter reached out to me for the company I work at now called Verkada. So we're a tech sales, exactly what I asked for. And I was interviewing when I was in Peru. And then I ended up coming back to the States, came up here for the interview, happened to look at this place that we're currently at the same day, and it worked out perfectly. And then we just started, living together.
Yeah, so just kind of like the stars, I truly believe aligned so that we would come together, and then living together as roommates. We have so much fun. And I think Soulful was really just a byproduct of the things we were already doing. So we love to host. We have a lot of like theme parties. We're known for theme parties, but dinner parties and book clubs
Yeah.
and art craft nights. We just constantly were filling our schedule with a big group of friends, and we love to entertain. And then also the other really fun thing about living together and just getting to be closer as friends is that we have a lot of shared interests and passions really so around self-development and improvement, and we're such lifelong learners. So we'd be getting home from work, sitting on the couch and just talking about like a podcast that we listened to and what we learned
For
and how,
hours,
yeah,
literally. Dating
truly.
stories, wisdom that we've learned or gathered from our travels and from work and just from
Yeah.
day-to-day life and things that we, podcasts, books, whatever it was. And we're like, how do we make this bigger?
Yeah. And so we were driving to Mendocino, which is about a 3-hour car ride. And we had just gone to an event in San Francisco. It was like a rooftop wellness, sound bath meditation kind of event, and felt so good afterwards. And we're just driving in the car and we look at each other at the same time. And we had the exact same thought without even realizing. We're both, what if we started doing that and hosting? And it was so funny that we just didn't realize both of us were thinking that at the same time. And
the 3-hour car ride turned into a 3-hour business meeting, our first one ever. And Soulfull was born.
Yeah. And it's just so crazy and how easy it felt, because truly, I think one thing we've felt a lot through the process of building Soulfull in our community is that while it is hard work, there are elements that are definitely challenging. We're building things and carrying hard stuff and coordinating with vendors and everything, but it doesn't really feel hard. Like, it's so natural and there's no resistance. Like, things just pour out of us when we come together, and it's really,
we're in
fun.
like flow state, and it just happens seamlessly. So it's been challenging, but still fun, and it really fills up our cup, which is the whole point of Soulfull, right? It's something that fills our soul.
Yeah, that's such a lovely story, and I feel like it's like a really good foundation for what you're trying to do, because it seems like it's built on friendship and meaningful connection and communities. That's obviously like a core value to both of you guys. So that's so lovely.
Yeah, we always never have too many friends. So I think that's even just a part of it too, is like, how do we meet new people? How do we bring more people into the fold and give back to San Francisco too? Because it's such a really great city and great community. And there's a lot of people here that are looking for deep connection and just to expand their friend groups and things. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I know from my experience of living there, there's been like countless conversations I've had with friends where we're like, we just don't know how to meet people. And it's just a process. You slowly get better at it, but there's definitely, I would say, a gap or a need for more ways to connect people with like-minded people who like to do similar things, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Making adult friendships get really hard. I think my parents always said, you leave college and then until you really start having kids, like, it is just hard. There's not a lot of natural circles where you meet people, like you said, that are like-minded. So creating something that is either a space for someone who might be new to the city and wants to meet more friends, or someone who's just looking to expand their circle. Like I said, I think you can never have too many friends. And so that's a really special part of Soulfull, definitely.
And the people we've even met through starting Soulfull, they're so empowered and badass and just great individuals. And it's been awesome learning from them, connecting with them, leveraging their skills as well in our community space and in our events too. So
yeah, I love that so much. Like, I have really enjoyed through this podcast being able to connect with also, like you said, like empowered, badass people who are like just going out and like doing something. And it's just so lovely to have a thing that could potentially be your like work one day, where that is like a core element. So love that. But I also wanted to ask, so I think starting something on the side of your full-time job is always an interesting experience. So I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about your jobs, your day jobs now. Obviously, they probably provide you stability and you have already built up industry experience. But how do you see your jobs now? What do they mean to you now after having the life experiences you've had so far that brought you to this point?
That's a good question. I am a big proponent of I am working to live. I'm not living to work. And so that has always been like a huge pillar of mine. So my day job, I'm in sales. I work at a tech company. It's not something I'm super passionate about. I love my coworkers, but I commute every day, 30 minutes at 5 in the morning. I work East Coast hours. So I'm up early It's no, not even light out yet. And so it's just something that's not fulfilling, and it definitely drains my soul. And while it does support me, and I'm so grateful to have a job and have an income that can provide this beautiful house and beautiful view, we can actually see the Golden Gate Bridge right now. It is just something that it's like it means to an end almost. And so it's right now just supporting Soulfull and supporting me while I figure out what I want to do and what I want to create. And so I'm so grateful for that, but it's definitely not a long-term goal for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what we've talked about a lot is that the more we lean into Soulful and what our passions are, the harder it gets to do our day jobs, because there's just
Yes.
before there wasn't really a contrast as much. So you just like ignorance is bliss almost. You're like, this is my job. This is what I do. I sell insurance, and I didn't have anything else to compare to. And now that I'm really tapping into something that, like we said, fills our soul so much and just gives me so much joy. And again, to reiterate my earlier point, it doesn't feel hard. It feels in flow. You want to do that more. So having that contrast now has definitely made it harder to do my 9 to 5 and tap back into that mindset. You know, we'll have a really great event on the weekend, or we'll have a really good business meeting during the week, and I'm like, oh, like now I have to go to work tomorrow and do my boring day job. So I think, yeah, ultimately the goal is to try to lean more into this and see how far we can take it. And we've always said too, it's at the end of the day, the most important thing is like one, like our friendship. So we'd never risk that. And then just having fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if at any point either of those things are at jeopardy, either we're not having fun anymore or our friendship's at risk, I think we would just try to spin it into something else. Like we both are just, I think,
very
entrepreneurial spirits.
Yeah, very adaptable.
Yeah.
And so even in San Francisco, I've noticed a lot of people's personality revolves around their job, or it's the first question people ask, like when you meet someone, hey, what do you do for work? And while that is a big part of your life, it does pay the bills, it is your 9 to 5. I think there's so much outside of work that people can be proud of and people can tap into. And so it's just interesting, I guess, the people that we are around and the shift around that.
Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. That is like a tough mindset to get out of for sure. And yeah, I've experienced something very similar. As I started to work on something that really aligned or energized me, it was harder and harder to ignore, I think, like how my other job wasn't filling my cup in that way. It was almost like an inconvenient realization slash truth. Like it was already like there beneath the surface already, but then that contrast, as you put it, became very like stark. So that's difficult for sure.
When I was 5, my mom tells the story, and I would be running around the house, basically naked, screaming, what is my purpose? Like, why am I here? And my mom's like, that's a really profound question from a 5-year-old. I don't know what to tell you. And I think that's always been an underlying question within me, is like, what is my purpose? Why am I here? And we do these jobs and we, you know, go to school and go to college and travel and move. And again, I always just had this calling. Like, I know I'm meant for something more than just a 9 to 5. Like, I don't want to work for someone else. I want to work for me. I want to create change. I want to inspire. I want to influence. And I know I can do it. And so now, with all my traveling and working and moving and meeting Caroline, I feel like I really know what I'm here to do. And that's so exciting. Yeah, I definitely feel in alignment.
Yeah, and it's like the concept of being paid to exist. Once you are just operating, like you said, on that higher energy or that higher frequency, that you know, even though it might be hard, you're starting out, you're like, this is my path. It's like, how do you then, like this is what I meant to do, and how can I just make money doing that? And
it's
I
so
think
exciting.
It just comes. The money comes once you I'm sure, as you know, like you took a big leap and a big risk of leaving your day job to go after your passion. And I think the universe rewards that typically. Like when you have
trust and you just kind of surrender,
courage to say no to something that's not for you, to say yes to something that is, I honestly feel like the universe starts opening doors, and things like start to flow and just happen for you once you put that intention out there. We're big believers in that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I was technically laid off, but it was going to happen at some point anyway. But yeah, just wanted to clear that up. Yeah, but yes, I couldn't agree more. I think one thing you were talking about earlier, like about in San Francisco especially, it's one of the main topics in conversations. What do you do for work? And I don't know, the tendency to tie my identity to what I do, that has also been a really interesting thing to grapple with throughout this transition. It's like, how do you define yourself? Like, I personally when I was just like a software engineer, I would just like cling to that, I realized. And then once that was kind of changing, I was like, what's the definition now? And I think it's just really interesting when this shift happens and you let something into your life, maybe let in your true passion or whatever. Yeah, it's like, how do you then change your definition of yourself? Because then it's, do you attach it to the new thing that you're doing, or do you just not attach it to anything? So I'm wondering how you guys see that so far into the soulful journey.
Yeah, I think we both, again, like always are talking about concept like this. This is such like a conversation we have all the time of just the
Yeah.
more you attach yourself to anything external, whether it's a relationship or a job or really anything that you cannot control, to your point, like your job might not be there tomorrow, or, you know, sadly, like that person or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So we really try to work a lot on just attachment only to like yourself and like your core values and your passions and things, and not really looking outward to fill your cup. So I think Soulfull is the living embodiment of that. It is, like I said, like we love Soulfull. We love the community. The people that are in it are amazing, but it's not a physical thing to us. It is like an internal feeling. Like when you think about what is a community, really, it's just a feeling of connectedness and like-mindedness and shared interest and passion.
And that's sometimes even just with yourself, right? Like coming back to you, like you are your own home. And I do think as humans, we like to make things permanent, kind of like Caroline was saying, our jobs, where we live, relationships, friendships. And that's the beauty of life, like being drunk on the idea of change, because change can happen at any point, right? Like you can lose your job, or you can be offered a new job, or you can break up, or someone could pass away, or you just have friendships that fade, or you move, and that is life. And so being able to ebb and flow and go with it and just remain positive, because you have yourself and you know that you've got you. I'm a big proponent of you are your own hype woman, you're your own best friend. Like no matter what changes, you have yourself. So if that foundation is strong, like you can really do anything in the world. And so just coming back to yourself.
So building Soulfull is really to create that feeling inside of someone, so that even if outside of the community, again, like not even attaching to the community, they still have that feeling. So it's just creating that from within, and then, not feeling overly attached, because it's easy to define ourselves again by what we do, who we hang out with, whatever. But I think the process of just self-discovery, self-growth is a lifelong process. But the more you feed into it and give into it, then you feel your best self too. I think you just feel more relaxed, and like the pace of the universe, just let things flow, less resistance.
Yeah, I think that's like such good guidance, and it's probably going to be really helpful for hopefully anyone listening as well. And I do agree. I think it's like any skill, it takes time to improve at. Yeah, so it's very easy when growing up to trend in that direction, I think. And you pick a major, etc. But then it's like the process of letting go of those titles like we are given.
I was a bio major and I wanted to be a doctor from an early age. And I don't really know, honestly, why I wanted to be a doctor at this point in time, but it became my identity, like you were saying. And my parents knew I wanted to go to med school. My friends knew I wanted to go to med school. And when that finally shifted after I studied abroad and got to teach English in Madrid for a little bit, I was like, wait a minute, I'm having an identity shift as well. My parents were like, no, like you always talked about this, like you want this. And I was like, I don't know if I do want that anymore. And so having almost an identity crisis, exactly. Wait, I can change. I do have the choice. I am the creator of time. I'm the creator of my time, of my life. I'm the main character. I'm the producer. I'm the actor, the director. Like I can do whatever the hell I want. And so just hire, fire, promote as you wish. There's something so magical and beautiful about that. And so just really owning that. I think sometimes we forget that we can do whatever we want. We can change our mind. That's okay.
I think that's the biggest thing I see a lot. People not thinking that they have their own permission to change their mind, or that is bad, or you somehow have to pick what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're 18 maybe, and then never...
You don't even know you are 18. Like it's okay.
We all feel it. As much as we say that, it's still, there are days when I do get really caught up into my 9 to 5, and you feel the stress, or you just feel like you're not making progress enough, or all these things. And then once I stop and think about it, it's like, my job is not who I am. Like, am I fulfilled in all these other areas and elements that are arguably more important to me? yes, so let's like let this one piece work itself out. It's not worth being too stressed over.
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good reminder. And it's really top of mind for me right now because as I've shifted to having all my time to myself, even if it is temporary, there are times when I get really stressed and I tend to pile on to-dos because I'm like, this time is so precious. This is my baby. This is my product. I want to like do the most I can with it. And it's easy to get very worked up when at the end of the day, like I made this transition so that I could be doing something that was more fulfilling, that would cause me less stress and more just feel more natural. So it's really interesting to talk about it to me. And so I wanted to get your guys' take on that, but it sounds like you have a very good mindset around the whole thing. So it's very refreshing for sure.
It's been a journey though. Like my mindset wasn't always, I think, like this. And so again, it's just being patient with
Mhm.
yourself and always investing in yourself. At the end of the day, that's the biggest or the best investment you can make is in yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's a work in progress. But okay. Okay. Another question on another note. Obviously, community is very important to you guys with what you're doing with Soulful. And also, we could all obviously benefit from more meaningful friendship in our 20s. It's such an interesting, tumultuous time. So, I was wondering, it sounds like you guys have already talked about this, but what do you see as the intended impact of Soulful?
I think really it's creating a space where people feel like they can be their most authentic self, because I think a
Mhm.
lot of us don't have that space. It's we all, some
Yeah.
areas are more so than others, but like a little superficial, or again, people are talking about their jobs or have to feel like they have to have everything together and be impressing everybody.
Or maybe these friendships are just surrounded or formed from going out and partying and
Right.
drinking and, which again, hearsay, but like more authentic, meaningful connections in a space where people feel safe that they can show up as that most authentic version of themselves. And they have people there also doing the same thing, wanting to grow, wanting to learn, wanting to connect, wanting to learn.
Yeah, because again, like some people don't have a space like that. And I think it's just really sad. And I think coming out of the pandemic, too, what I've talked about with a lot of people is just a lot of people felt really lonely, obviously, during the pandemic, but even after,
Mhm.
it's like socializing and meeting people and these authentic connections is a skill. And I think some people, because that muscle wasn't worked like anything else, if you don't use it, you lose it, sort of. They kind of forgot how to do that, or it just felt intimidating again. And
Yeah.
we're in a rebuilding phase where people are starved for these connections. I think it's a testament to how many, we're not the only community in San Francisco. We actually are one of many, and we've all intertwined and we do collaborations, and it's so wonderful. But a lot of communities have come out of the pandemic, I think, really again, because people want that. Especially our generation, I just feel like we want to go deeper with ourselves and with others. So not always knowing what that looks like, I think, is the hard part, or how to do it, but we're trying to make that easy.
And fun
Hopefully,
and
yeah.
like playful. And so
Yeah.
a lot of it, it's
Yeah.
not just like self-discovery and it's not just meeting new people, but it's having fun and just
Mhm.
laughing and doing things maybe that bring out your inner child that we've gotten away from because we have just been so focused on work or going out. And so finding new hobbies as well, new skills or something that you haven't tried before that maybe you're like, yeah, let's do this. Let's give it a go. And
Yeah.
so,
Maybe pushes you outside your comfort zone a little bit.
yes.
That's why we do a variety of events. I think we're probably different from another type of community, let's say a running group where everybody there is pretty like-minded in that they run, they do that together. We are trying to be more broad in the types of events and activities that we're doing so that we can appeal to a wider audience. But the pillars that are consistent around all of them are some element of self-growth, or like we said, self-discovery, play, because I think we
Yes.
all like don't let our inner children out enough and just dance and create like art or just movement and play. But then also tapping into our local community and spotlighting people here who are doing very cool and unique things, and how can we highlight that or bring a light to
Or incorporate it. Like,
these
yeah.
people. So those are three pillars of our events, and I think that actually gives us more of a variety of things we can do, because you
Mhm.
can work that into many different types of events and things. So there's something for everybody, truly.
Yeah, yeah. That as you're talking about it sounds so great and sounds like it would just help with making life a little bit lighter, like more emphasis on play, less emphasis on the professional, what are my long-term goals, all that stuff. That is very common in San Francisco as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's really lovely. And like as I'm thinking like over the years post college that I've had, when you're trying to connect with friends or make new friends, it's you almost have to do the brainstorming on your own of what's something fun we could do that's not like maybe going out or going to get a meal or whatever, or just going somewhere to spend money. And it would be nice, yeah, if there's more resources that kind of like assist with that. Because sometimes it's okay, then I have to brainstorm another thing to do. So like taking the mental strain off, like just another resource for people to be like, oh, I know that community does like a bunch of cool random stuff. Yeah, very cool.
And I think too, we try to make as many of our events like free or low cost as possible. Obviously, there are some costs that we do take on, so we do charge for some of our events, but a lot of our events are free. Like we have a group hike coming up. We're going to be starting something soon that we're just calling coffee chats, and it's going to be once a month where we have a different, like I mentioned, we really want to spotlight local friends and business owners and people that we know in our network,
like experts in a certain realm.
Yeah,
it was like a little mini TED talk. And so
just to
have
that educational, whether it's your rights in the workplace or your rights as tenants, or we have so many interesting people in our network, so it's like giving them an opportunity to teach others what they know. And again, no cost, I mean, other than maybe buying a cup of coffee if you want, but just making it accessible, like you said, so it's not walk out the door and spend. We already feel like,
I feel like every time I leave the house I spend $100.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
$12 on a bagel sandwich last weekend. I was like, oh,
I spent like $12 on a cheap, and I was like, wait, what is in this?
No, literally.
It's crazy.
So bad.
Yeah. San Francisco is
bad.
not cheap. I will say that.
No, it is not. It is not, but it is so beautiful. But okay. So on that note, like, how do you come up with the different event ideas? And then like maybe what's an example of one of your favorites that you've hosted so far and why?
Honestly, we are just constantly, so one of the perks of being roommates, we're always together and best friends. Like we're always texting or messaging each other, just like a rapid fire of ideas.
Yeah.
It'll be 6 a.m. and I'm at the office and I'll just like text Caroline a bunch of like random ideas I have. I'm like, sorry to spam you at 6 a.m. I know you're not awake yet. And then she'll just respond back and we'll just have rapid fire. So we're both big dreamers. Already.
Yeah, like visionaries.
What if we could do Delulu is the Solulu in this case.
Yeah. I think we're both so willing to, like, if Taylor comes to me with an idea, I'm like, yeah, let's try it. Like, why not? And see what sticks. So we don't have a lot of like resistance to that. And even something that seems sort of like a big endeavor, we're trying to plan a pickleball tournament right now. And we're like, I barely even remember the rules of pickleball because I forget everything. So I'm like, we can do that. It can't be that hard. We can make rackets. We'll have prizes. It'll all work out. We just have, unlimited belief that we can do anything.
We hosted what we call Vibe Alchemy, and it was this holistic celebration of breath work, sound bath. We had a DJ, yoga instructor, dance party, bonfire with the sunset at the beach. It was great. We wanted to build this like stage for the DJ, and we had no clue really what we wanted it to look like or what the execution would be or how to do it. And we were in a group chat and I was like, ladies, I'm going to Home Depot. Stay tuned. And I come back with a 6-foot piece of wood, some tools, and we end up making this really cool stage or this booth, painted it, and now we can use it for the rest of our events. So it's just like we have a vision, and I think we're both really good at making it happen. So
just trying. Yeah, I think my favorite event that we did, other than Vibe Alchemy, which would be an ongoing event, we actually have another one coming up at the end of next month, was our clothing swap. So this was Taylor's idea, and I had never been to a clothing swap before, but
me either, honestly.
Taylor and I both are really big proponents of like sustainable fashion and trying not to support fast fashion retailers. We do a ton of thrifting. We do a clothing rental subscription service called Newly that I'm obsessed with. But when she said that, I was like, absolutely, I love that concept. Like just getting all friends and people in our community together to retire something that you once loved, but no longer maybe fits your wardrobe, and finding it a new home where someone will be really excited about that new item. And we got so much positive feedback from the event. Everybody walked away with at least 1 to 2 to maybe 10.
Some people had a lot. Yeah, we had a DJ there as well. It was at a really cool co-working space nearby. And so it was... that was one of my favorite events too. And these events, I don't know how to explain it, but they're like sober events. We provide non-alcoholic drinks, and I always feel high on life after. It feels like I'm drunk or on drugs or something, because it just fills me up with so much energy. I'm like, this is exactly what I need and what I want. And yeah,
I think it's something about the execution being, seeing that like idea of something like Taylor sending me a voice memo, like we should host a clothing swap, to then actually bringing that to fruition and seeing how much people were like, I never thought about something like this. This is exactly what I needed. I had a bag of good, clothes I was going to take to Goodwill or something.
Can you guys do it again? This was, the coolest one we've been to. And we're like, yes, that makes us feel so happy. So
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so fun. Yeah, the clothing swap is like genius. Like that is something that I feel like honestly has been on my mind for a while. And I've always been like, oh gosh, it's a lot of that. That's a lot to organize. I don't know. And I was just waiting for someone to like make that a thing.
Doing it seasonal, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I think that's so smart because again, something I've chatted about many times with friends is like they don't know what to do with their clothes. Maybe they want to sell it online, but it's too much work. I feel like every girl or like most girls have this problem. So yeah, bringing them together, amazing. Love
the
it.
average person wears an item of clothing only 7 times before they discard it or like never wear it again, which is not that many times if you think about the grand scheme of life. And all those clothes end up in a landfill or in the deserts in Chile. And what can we do to, be more sustainable and be more conscious consumers? And so I think getting that message out, because a lot of people don't know, right? Fast fashion is kind of taken over. We want to keep up with the trends. We want to be cute and cool, but we can do the same thing just with swapping clothes with a friend or shopping vintage or thrifting. Or
it was my favorite comment that someone made too, was that like, this is so great because it's like no risk. They're like, this wouldn't normally be something that I would buy in a store because I don't know if I could make it work. It's not really my style, but I'm going to, take this home today because I'm going to try to experiment. So that was like the unintended, really cool effect of the event too, that I hadn't thought about. But yeah, it's again, element of play with your style, change up if you want to try on something that's not your normal, mold, go for it. Just, I think it's empowering and confidence building too, which is again, kind of like an unintended effect that we didn't think about, but that was really special.
Just a quick break in the episode to talk about the secondhand shopper's best friend, which is called Benny. It is a Chrome extension you can add to your browser for free that suggests secondhand alternatives available on different resale sites to whatever item you are looking for. I have been using it for a couple months now, and it is incredible how accurate it has become in matching to the same items as what you're looking for. So if you're looking to shop more sustainably but don't always have the time to thrift or sift through everything available on Poshmark, eBay, Mercari, etc., then Benny is your new best friend. Just click my referral link in the episode show notes and happy shopping.
Yeah, definitely. And like, how often are you in an environment where there's a bunch of people or like girls and like clothes and you're like, it's like a creative environment and you're like trying other people's stuff on, and that's just so fun. Like usually the experience with clothes.
Like it was amazing.
Yeah. So that is phenomenal. So I applaud you guys for that. But yeah. So what have you learned through putting on these events, and like what have been some challenges so far? Like I'm sure since you've started, you've noticed some things that like maybe didn't work as great as like other things, and things that like you're like, oh, we're gonna keep doing that.
That's a good question.
I think the things that we've learned have been, one, we're always learning about ourselves from doing these events. And I think, again, testing the limits of what's possible. And every time we prove to ourselves when we host a successful event, we're like, we could do it.
Oh, that was easy. We could do that again.
Like, let's do it bigger. How do we, make it better? But I think one thing we've talked a lot about is like, anytime you're doing any sort of entrepreneurial venture, I think you are sort of changing, and it's a hard line between, you have your friends our friends are so great and so supportive, but you do start to notice the people that don't show up or don't ask how things are going or don't encourage. So it has been a little bit of a lesson in just evolution and changing, and just who are the people around you that are rooting for you in your corner, because it definitely stands out more. Like we've had so many amazing people who have helped for no reason other than just being the kindness of their heart, helped us with setup or cleanup for events, or reached out and just affirmed what we're doing. And that means so much to us. So it just makes us, I think, a little bit more conscious of our environment and the people and the things that we are surrounding ourselves with. And I think it's a challenge because what we're doing, it is hard, because I think it's a lot of work. It's like having 2 jobs in a lot of ways. And some people get that and some people don't, I think. So it's just been interesting.
For sure. And even just like promoting our events and gaining followers, right? Like we have been doing most of it word of mouth or Instagram right now, or the Nudge will promote some of our events from time to time. And so just being more creative with the content that we're creating, like how to reach a wider audience, I feel like that is something that we're also constantly learning and figuring out as we go. And it's
Mhm.
been definitely a challenge. We have grown pretty quickly in the last 3 months or 4 months since we started in January. And our friends have been there to support us for the first few events. And now we're reaching a wider audience and reaching people that we don't know and friends of friends or just people that have found us from Instagram or whatever it is. And so that's been exciting and just figuring out how to tap into that more as well.
For sure. I guess I didn't think about that piece. I don't even have a personal Instagram. So we started in
Okay.
January. Taylor had to literally go back and show me, like, this is how you post a story. This is what this means. This is how you do this. I didn't even know. I was like, so I'm a grandma. I don't know anything of that. So
Mhm.
it's been really cool to me. Like the growth means so much more because I had like, I'm like, we have 500 followers now, 6. Whoa, so crazy because I have really no concept.
Yeah.
That has been a challenge because I don't think either one of us have a ton of background in
No.
social media.
Like I have my own Instagram for fun, but I've never like trying to
Right.
like, how do we grow? How do we find a wider audience? And so,
but I know that you have some great content about that.
Yes.
You listen to your episodes.
Yeah.
Mutual learning. You meet new people.
Oh,
and
good.
yeah, it's been super helpful.
Yeah.
It's an unintended, really cool.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. If you guys ever want to chat about that, like I think about that all the time. And I think like something like your business is like perfect for it because there are literally people who might not know about what you do and like you have a way to reach them. It just takes making those videos, making those reels. It's sometimes very annoying, but I think it's so powerful.
And that's been like I would say is just the time, right? Like, making the content, posting
Mhm.
the content, planning the events, setting up for the events, taking down for the events, brainstorming, coming up with the business plan and the business models. And it's like time consuming and it can be very challenging. And I think I absolutely love Caroline and I trust her with my whole heart. And so our communication and her strengths are my weaknesses, my strengths are her weaknesses, and we just balance each other out. So it's just, even though they are challenging, I'm like, we got this. Like, no matter what, it's fine.
Like just together. I think it's the part that we haven't really talked about. What's so cool is that we are doing this together because I think in your case and a lot of our good friends that are starting entrepreneurial ventures or businesses, a lot of times they're doing it alone. And that is really hard and isolating. And I feel so lucky and blessed that we're doing this together because I really feel like I've got a true partner in it. And the days when my cup might be running a little low or I'm like having doubts or like, oh my gosh, I don't know if we can pull this off, Taylor's right there to hype me back up and saying, no, we've got this. And it goes both ways. So I feel like this is such a unique like journey of that we're doing this together and helps a lot having two people.
Yeah.
Two brains. Sometimes that's why we're in flow state. It's just a rapid fire, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, that's so huge though, and that's so helpful for sure. But I also want to say before we move on, what you said earlier about how you've noticed, I don't know, like almost changes in like yourselves and then changes in like others' response or whatever. Like definitely find that so, so relatable. I have talked about that in previous episodes for sure. And it's definitely an uncomfortable experience, I think, because like again, it's just like change and I just don't know like quite how to handle it. But I would agree that when you embark on an additional venture, it forces you to then make changes in behavior, be much more organized, be on top of everything. It forces you to grow, like it really does. And then things kind of change sometimes, and it's just, I don't know, that was an unanticipated effect, I think, for me as well.
Yeah,
For
just
sure.
people's reactions to it because I think because we are so busy, we're not that we ever really went out a lot, but we don't have as much social time to go out and be out all night. And some people who are maybe used to a past version of ourselves when we had less,
say we're lame or we're being boring. Or, again, they're used to an old version of you, and when you grow out of that and are becoming a new version of yourself, they have resistance towards that. And it's just like a classic case of people outgrowing each other, and that's the ebb and flow of life, right? You can grow back, but it has been interesting just seeing the friendships or the relationships change and evolve as well as we're changing and evolving and growing this.
Yeah. So. And I think, our attitude about it has just been to keep a lot of love and, no judgment of either side. It's just, like we said, change is inevitable. And I think we're becoming more of our best versions of ourselves, and we're going to attract a different kind of person or friendship or just opportunities in general because of that.
And it'll likely repel, also other friendships
doesn't
or
align.
Yeah.
Natural process that you go through. Yeah, just having, again, detachment, I think, is huge, and just saying like,
Yeah.
it's okay, everything's working out as intended, and the people that you aren't in your life anymore, like, that's okay. Like, again, they might come back boomerangs.
Yeah, no bad vibes. Just looking ahead. Just taking it
Exactly.
day by day. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So back to the fact that it's so lovely that you guys have each other and you founded it together through similar values. What is it like working with your best friend? And then I'm curious if you've noticed any specific unique gifts that each of you have that kind of balance each other out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Taylor is she's an energizer bunny. She's never stressed. We just talked about that last night. I was like, I never see you stressing. I'm a little bit more, I'll get a little more stressed or like in my head, I feel like, and just seeing her unwavering positivity and true belief that everything will work out is so positive for me, because you need that. Like I said, if I'm like having a bad day or I'm stressed or getting a little bit overly logical about something, she pulls me out of that and reminds me that yes, everything is possible. And if you have the right mindset and attitude, you can literally move mountains.
With
That's a
that being
huge one.
said, sometimes I can be a little delulu and I like dream so big and have crazy visions. I'm like, we can do everything right now, like easy. And then Caroline's like, okay, let's reel it back a little bit.
We can do it, but let's do.
We need these steps first. I'm like, okay, yes, good call.
Yeah, so we have different
Yeah.
in that. And I think even too, some of the events or what we bring to the table for our events is Taylor, I think, has a more unique experience of even living in San Diego and then living in Europe, and just what you've been exposed to and your ideas are different than I'm probably a little bit more, not like narrow minded. I just hadn't had that many examples. So I feel like we're both big dreamers, but she has a lot more creative examples and things to build off of that I hadn't seen. So she helps me, like, she'll say, oh my God, I went to this event one time in San Diego and it was like this. And then it spurs my creative process. It's like putting a template out there of what's possible. And then it helps me think more, because otherwise like almost too broad, I'd be a little lost. Like, you kind of ground and center, and then we build around that. So that's like a lot of our creative process comes from that, I think.
And Caroline is definitely the writer of the two of us. She is an amazing and articulate speaker and writer. And so I think my more creative side is like photography and maybe like photos and the Instagram. And then you really hone in on the newsletter and the blog. And it's like the perfect balance, the perfect mixture. And even when we've had some conflict come up, we just talk about it and good at hearing each other's side. And so it's never from a place of bad intention. It's always, I respect you. I love you. I want to hear your side. I want to hear where you're coming from. And likewise. And then we always end up moving forward and like at a better place.
Because we've worked through something, we solved some problem. It also spurs creativity. Where neither of us are really, sometimes we're conflict avoiding just because we don't care. Like, I'm the kind of person, like, I really never have like fights with people because I'm just like, it's not worth it. Like, whatever, like, everybody's fine. But we're also not afraid to have conflict, and we don't see it as a bad thing, especially for our business. I personally think every single time we've had a moment of not really seeing eye to eye or just maybe disagreeing about something, we sit back and think about it. And then we're like, okay, wait, no, we can find a solution forward and it's even better. And I think we've had a lot of examples of that. And every single time I've been like, wow, like the way we navigated that was really great. And
I know it's like a true partnership and a true like best friend relationship. It's been great.
Yeah, that sounds really healthy. And yeah, I think it is important to have that open communication that it sounds like you guys have, especially when like you're spending so much time on something. You're probably working harder than you were when you just had your day jobs. Yeah, it is a lot, but it's also nice to hear like how well you seem to know both yourselves and each other. Yeah, I feel like when you're talking, it makes me think I've noticed throughout this, as I'm getting more and more used to working by myself, I'm very logical, rigid, like intense at times. So I have to go seek out ways to like bring it down, relax, bring in more like softness. It's very interesting to think about what it would be like working with someone versus working on your own. So that's why I ask.
That really reminds me of just a conversation Taylor and I have been having a lot lately, and it's talking about like feminine and masculine energy. I'm sure it's a very topical conversation right now. And I think when you are building something that tends to lean towards your masculine energy, and we both are in
Yeah.
very sales cultures.
I work with all men. We've always been very
Mhm.
competitive, very driven,
Driving.
which is your masculine energy.
Yes. And so
Yeah.
check ourselves to exactly what you're talking about. Anytime we're feeling a little bit too much in that headspace of just bringing in that feminine energy, which is more of like your creative side, that softness,
receptive,
yeah.
like very much slowing down.
Mhm.
And how do you do that while building
Exactly.
business? It seems a little bit counterintuitive in some ways. So it's something that
Yeah.
we try to strike a balance with and just keep top of mind.
And that's where a lot of the play comes in, right? Like art night.
Mhm.
And a lot of the art that we've made in our house is just us painting. And so we'll put on music and we'll have a night. And a lot of our creative juices flow from those instances when we're really tapping into our feminine side. And so I think the masculine side is like the business, like the go-go, how are we going to build this and grow this? And that feminine side is we get into the creative element and like, where can we take this? Like, how can we expand it and make it sustainable? So it's been it's a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It is tricky at times, but yeah, it's nice to know like you have encountered something similar. And yeah, same like coding, male dominated vibes, just from one thing to another. Yeah. So I know that you mentioned at one point in the future you want to maybe look into starting a podcast or email marketing. And so I was curious about your thoughts on these mediums or ways to communicate with your audience or maybe reach more people with your intended impact or whatever events you're planning. So I was wondering if you guys like what your plan was around those or how you see them like helping you out in the future or like even maybe what your thoughts are on building those.
Yeah, we have a newsletter right now that we're really trying to get off the
Okay.
ground because I think that newsletters went away. Like they weren't as prominent for a while, but I'm seeing we use Substack and there's definitely like
Okay.
a community on Substack. I think there's all these like little micro communities now and you can be like really niche and find what you're looking for there. But there's also just a really receptive, amazing group of people on Substack that are really willing to like share and help cross promote. And I've run into several other writers in the Bay Area that we're actually going to host a collaborative event with a colleague that runs something called Writing the Wave. And he's got like a really great network and he's teaching us the tips and tricks of that because I've always written, but not necessarily in a medium that way. But it's a lot of fun because it's a great tool for education. And that's a piece of Soulfull of really wanting to give back and teach people what we've been learning. So that is a huge avenue for that. And then I know Taylor also as a podcaster has a very strong presence and voice. So
I have my microphone's actually right there. And so it's been something that's been on my mind. I did like a test run a couple years ago, filmed a few episodes, and then I don't know what was like holding me back. I think maybe it was a fear of being seen or a fear of being heard. And I've really worked on that. And I think I've really honed in on what my vision is with that. And so coming soon, it's going to be called Spilling the Tea. I'm Taylor, so T, and I always say spilling the tea. And it's going to be just a podcast about my truth, my experiences, soulful interviews, people that we highlight in the community as well, and sharing the good stuff, the wisdom we've learned along the way.
Yeah.
Coming
so I think
soon.
those are the two biggest things we're focused on right now, but we're also trying to get our head wrapped around Threads, which is Instagram, Twitter.
Yeah.
New for me, but I've been just kind of like observing and like just reading posts and seeing what people post on there, what people are interested in. And it's also another community where people are seemingly very trying to uplift each other and say, hey, this is my goal, this is my business, this is what I'm doing. And then I'm reading a lot of people being receptive. Yeah, like how can I help you with that? So a lot more to learn in that element, but trying to see how we can even leverage that as a tool would be our next focus probably too after that.
Yeah, very cool to hear your thoughts on that as I'm like in the midst of trying to decide which ones I should focus on. It's almost, do I really do all of them? Because that's a lot. And I worry about not being able to make significant process in any one if I am just like, we're doing them all. So
there's also just something about honing in on one and like really being an expert in that industry. And so I think, again, it's like trial and error, right? Maybe try all of the avenues and see what works and what doesn't, what hits and what fills you up and what fills your soul up, and then go after that and put all your energy into that.
Yeah. It's especially challenging the concept of we're building a community and there's people that are like, we don't have like members in the sense that we're not like a paid like subscription in that way, but people that come to our events and frequent them. Some other communities have like a Slack channel or some WhatsApp that everybody can like talk in, because that obviously fosters that communal spirit more. That's a whole other
thing to
avenue.
manage.
Yeah. So
it gets a
it's
little
tough.
stimulus overload at some point. You're like,
Yeah.
okay, to like successfully run and do on a consistent
We
basis.
haven't dabbled with that yet, but maybe just seeing, I think it's just like asking the feedback of the people that come to our events. What do you want this to look like or feel like or be like? So we're open to it, but it is, to your point, like really challenging to a little bit of everything as opposed to going deep with maybe your primary mediums.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I hope that in theory, you play around, find like a couple that work, and then you just go with those for the foreseeable future. That seems much more approachable. And then maybe like when you're able to like maybe bring more people like onto the team, you can like expand or something. I'm not sure. But that's the goal. Okay, so what are your biggest, most wild dreams for Soulfull, and why?
It's a good question.
I think we've really like always been like the sky's the limit. We see this as it can have unlimited potential if we wanted to.
Yeah.
I think what would be really cool is always keeping the community element embedded in Soulfull. So we live in San Francisco now. So this is in theory like the San Francisco chapter. But I would love to see, a New York chapter, or San Diego,
a London chapter,
and
Bali chapter.
Yeah, whether that's
who knows,
an evolution of us picking up and moving, because we both say, who knows, maybe we'll have another, or like minute or what have you. But if we can leverage it enough, get it big enough, maybe there's somebody else who feels inspired and can use our template and our branding and examples of the events that we're running and start their own chapter. So that we foresee being an element of it. But then beyond just thinking of community in the physical sense, we really do want to try to grow Soulfull as a digital community too. So that's where the newsletter and some of those other mediums come into play. Bringing together, even like what you're doing with your podcast, you're bringing like probably other entrepreneurs or other people who are interested in these topics together, and you're creating a community of followers in that way. So
promoting products or brands that we love with our whole heart. Another vision for me is hosting retreats all over, anywhere, like local, Nicaragua, Bali, Costa Rica, and just having our pillars and collaborating again with local communities to create a space where people can come back to self, have fun, refill their cup up, and just, I don't know, reignite their passion for life. I feel like a lot of times we're just so drained that having a week off and going somewhere where you're really just meeting people and again, filling up your cup and like putting back into yourself is so important.
Yeah.
Just rethinking what community even means outside of like our little San Francisco bubble. This is like where it starts, but I do think there's potential to make it a lot bigger, have more reach.
Yeah. That's really nice to hear. And those all sound like great ideas. I'm really glad I did not skip over that question, because it's good to hear. Okay, one question about finances, because I think this is a big boundary for a lot of people who might have an idea and want to start something, but they're like, how does that work? And so even when you have a day job, sometimes these things, they require a bit of investment, because for me, it was like podcast equipment, subscriptions, etc. And that's relatively manageable, but it's still something. And speaking from personal experience, I don't know when that's going to turn into paying me back in any way. I'm curious, from your point of views, how your approach has been with Soulfull. Have you just been like investing of any of your own money? And then is that pretty manageable so far? Or like, how has that been for you guys?
Yeah, we've definitely been investing our own money so far, right? A few of our events have been paid, right? But the payment really just supplies the products that we're using for these events. So the vendors, the space, the clothing racks, or whatever we're buying to set up. And so any money that we have made from events goes directly back into the events. So we haven't made a profit yet. And so I think that's also been like a business goal of ours, is to figure out how to make a profit of it and pay ourselves, because we are putting so much time and effort and energy into this, and it does fill us up, but we also want it to support us and grow it that way as well.
It's not easy because you're putting a lot of your own finances at risk, but I think it's because it's so rewarding to us. We don't necessarily view it as this is what we love to do. So there's
Yeah.
no better way that I'd rather spend my money. We work hard in our 9 to 5 so
Yeah.
that we can live a full life outside. And so I guess it's just like our mindset about it. We trust and have a lot of faith that we will be able to figure out a way that we won't have to worry, like that truly like we are resourceful enough and have a really healthy mindset about money. Like it comes back to
Money
that.
is energy.
We talk about this a lot because I think we both grew up maybe without the healthiest concept about money. Money was like not really talked about in my family a lot. I think it was a very like hush hush topic.
And your mindset around money is formed when you're like 5 or 6 years old, how your parents treat money, if they're super spenders or super savers or whatever it might
stressed
be.
about money, I think.
Yeah, and
big one.
it ingrains in your brain. And then you have to almost unlearn a lot of those behaviors and realize that money is everywhere. Money is energy. You can create it doing really anything. And so just kind of like
and not feeling resistance, because I used to even, you know, if I wanted to buy myself, let's say like a nice purse or something, I would feel so guilty about it after and be like, oh my God, I just spent all this money. Or we'd have a big weekend coming up. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna spend all this money, and just thinking about it with a lack and a scarcity mindset. And again, this is one of the things that we've learned, and one of the things that we talk about all the time is flipping that to a mindset of abundance. And
I get to spend this money, or I get to spend $100 on groceries. Like it's gonna feed me. Like I'm so lucky. And so just instead of I just spent $100 on groceries, like just a little reframes. Yeah.
So we really built that into Soulfull, I think too. It's like when we do have a lot of expenses for an event, we're like, how lucky are we that we get to put on this great event or invest in this community, and we know and we just trust that it'll come back. And maybe that sounds a little naive in some ways, because it's like, you know, all the rationals out there be like, you have to have a way to make money and stuff. And we do, and we think about that. We're not completely like naive to those realities, but we just are big believers in mindset being everything. Paramount to that success. So
yeah, so interesting to think about. And I don't know, I feel like you could be like closer than you think sometimes to making money. I try to think about that for myself as well. And especially when I look at what you're doing, you're literally offering these lovely events for people. I feel like it makes sense at some point in the near future where you're able to profit off of that. And I'm glad you also brought up your mentalities on money from upbringing. I think about this so much, and I definitely resonate with what you said about like your mindsets, except like for me it's been really interesting because I think there was a scarcity mindset, and then when I started getting money, I didn't know how to like manage it, so I like went way the other direction. But like with the podcast, investing money in that, it's like similarly to you, this is an excellent use of money. This is a really good use of money. Like I have no qualms about this is great. Like it's also like an investment in self, it feels like sometimes.
Like sometimes we're so easy to spend $100 at dinner or for drinks or going out, but then when you want to invest $100 in yourself for podcast equipment, or you're like, wait a minute, should I be doing that? And then it's like, wait a minute, no. Again, the best investment is in yourself. And if you haven't read this book, You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero, or I'm not exactly sure.
I haven't.
Great book, and it has some prompts in there, and it just rewires your money mindset mentality. So
yeah. Okay, I'll check that out.
Okay. One piece of that also is just, I feel like a lot of what we view as like appropriate ways to spend money is just what society tells us. If somebody was like, I'm going to go to grad school and be $50,000 in debt or whatever.
Yes.
Don't really question that. And they're like, wow, that's so great. And you view that as you're going to get a better job and this and that. But what better investment is there is like the school of like life. So you are trying an entrepreneurial venture, and you are going out there and you're learning how to use tools that you've probably never touched before. You're just using life as your teacher, or maybe it's an online course or what have you. But what's any different about that? You're still learning very valuable, applicable skills that you could translate not only into another job if you wanted, but into any relation, like anything that you do.
Yeah.
So it's just saying, like this is equally as a worthy an investment, and not thinking about it just the way that society tells you to. Like that's not a good use of your money.
Yeah, I agree so much. Yeah, and I feel like, putting yourself in a position to embrace this part of you that like maybe you haven't been able to embrace previously, like that's going to bring about so many realizations about yourself and so much growth and so much like just like room for opportunity. So yeah, it's like very worth it to me. But Yeah. Okay. I would love if you could give advice for aspiring entrepreneurs or those who have an idea to start like a group or an organization or something community based or just anything really based on your experiences so far.
I think it's totally, this is what we talked about in the beginning, is not letting your perfectionism get in the way. I think we both, when we were just thinking about Soulfull, we're like, well, maybe we should get a website first. Maybe we should do this and all this. And we're like, if we wait until everything, we have a perfect logo and perfect brand colors,
You're
and
waiting forever.
we won't just do it. We're like, we
Yeah.
trust that we will work those things out, but let's just put something up there and just do it and just go for it, because yeah, you'll be waiting forever. There's always going to be something that you need to do and a logistical thing in the way, but at the end of the day, you have to start somewhere. You have to just go and do.
There's something about the power of now, right? It's actually a book by Eckhart Tolle, or again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that, but if you have an idea, run with it. Just do it. If you say, oh, I'll get to it later, like you're never going to do it. And so if you have that idea, put it on a piece of paper, write it down in a notebook, and just make it happen. And so don't worry about the perfectionism. It doesn't have to be perfect. And so you learn as you go, and just, I think, taking that initial leap, no matter how scary it is, that's typically where you find the most reward, is like on the edge of the comfort zone and something that's a little bit scary.
Yeah. And the other hard thing is, because you're doing it on yourself, it's not like a job or school where you have these deadlines and timelines that are handed to you and imposed. You have to do that yourself. And that can be really challenging. So I think the other thing too is being vocal. Like, we use our friends as mirrors and accountability partners. When we have an idea or something, we will start talking about it and tell people like, we're going to do this or whatever. And it almost, by saying that out into existence, like this pickleball tournament is a perfect example. There are a lot of logistics we need to figure out about it, but we've been starting to tell people like, hey, yeah, we're doing a pickleball tournament. And that's our own way of actually committing and saying we're going to figure out the details of the how, but putting it out there so that people could say like, aren't you doing that pickleball tournament? And kind of hold us accountable, give us a little bit of a timeline and a deadline.
Also, the idea that you're constantly manifesting, I think you're always creating your life with your energy. And so being conscious of your energy, right? Like, what is my mind telling me? Is it being my own worst enemy? Am I having all these doubts or fears? And am I telling myself a narrative that maybe isn't supporting me? And so being aware of our subconscious mind and reprogramming it if you need to, like hyping yourself up, saying your affirmations, writing them down, saying them in the mirror, whatever it is, to really rewrite that narrative and have that like sense of self and sense of confidence to really boost you off as well.
Yeah.
And so,
well, yeah, because like I read somewhere that worrying is a form of manifestation too. So if you're constantly stressed and what's preventing you from starting your business or accomplishing something, or what's going wrong, you're actually creating a more likelihood of that being the case. So it's managing your thoughts and your energy on both ways, really.
I call her my inner roommate. And sometimes you have to tell your inner roommate to shut up if they're like, oh, like you're ugly, like you can't do this, no one's gonna follow this, you're gonna fail, da, da. No,
they're gonna judge you.
You wouldn't let someone else talk to you that way. Like, why are you gonna let yourself talk to you that way? So sometimes you just have to tell them to be quiet and rewrite those thoughts and then just run with it.
Yeah, all pieces of great advice. And yeah, I would agree, like it's definitely been a process. My mindset on the podcast when I launched a little over a year ago was like nowhere near what it is today, but that's only because I've been doing it for that long. So now I'm like, I know I'm going to do this because I've been doing it, so it's fine. But before, it's scary, it's hard, it's weird, and all the doubts are like creeping up and very loud. So you just, I don't know, it's a process.
Well, it's that syndrome too, of like when you're starting out, you're like, I've done this before and I don't really know what I'm doing. But we got some really good advice through a woman that we saw when we were in Mendocino, and she said you only really need to be one step ahead of the people that you're teaching something to or you're doing something for. If you're doing a brand new, and to you or maybe all these other podcasters, you're like worried you're going to be compared, but the people that are listening are probably one, even two steps, three steps behind that podcast. They don't know, they're not going to judge you through that lens. They're just going to appreciate your content, what you have to share. So you don't need to be as far ahead to do some of these things as you think you need to. You don't need to be the expert. You just need to be one step ahead of whatever you're trying to teach or do or share.
Yeah, that's such a good reminder. I completely agree. But okay, I'm gonna wrap up with the last question, which is, what is a question you have for my next guest? not knowing what exactly they do.
Let me think.
Do we both get a question?
Yeah, 2 questions or 1 question?
Yeah, you
We'll
can
go
do 2 questions. I'll just, yeah.
quick. Yeah. I
Okay.
love the concept of, you learn more from failure than you learn from success. And you learn from failure. You don't always really learn from successes. But just what's the biggest failure that you've experienced that you've learned from or that has propelled you forward would be my question.
Okay. Mine would be whoever your next guest is, knowing everything that they know now, is there anything they would have done differently when they first started out?
Yeah. Yeah. Both of those great questions. It's going to start. I really like this now. This is my first time trying this, but it starts off the interview on a good note. It's like, okay, let's
Like pay it
let's
forward.
get into that.
Like
Yeah.
when you go to order like a Starbucks or whatever, and they're like, I'm gonna pay for the person behind me, and then like they start the train, so it's kind of fun. I like that.
Yeah. And I like how I can start off asking like a maybe like intense question and be like, it's not me, it was my other guest, like that kind of thing.
Hello, person.
Vibes.
Yeah.
No, I
Yeah,
love
because sometimes I like to ease into it. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, those are all the questions, but that was so lovely and so helpful. So thank you guys so much. I'm so glad.
having us
No, thank you
on.
so much.
This was so much fun.
You're such a natural. This was a really fun
Good.
conversation, and thanks for creating the space for us to share some of these things because
Yeah.
it's unique. Like you don't always get the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So just affirming you that what you're doing does really matter and is really cool, and hopefully will help a lot of people. So thank you for having us.
Thank you. I feel the same about you guys. And yeah, it's good to know that you think I'm a natural. It's been a long journey and it still is. So yeah.
Better every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're
Okay.
back in San Francisco anytime soon, definitely
Let us know.
Yeah, we'll get together or come to one of our events. It would be great to have you.
We'll get dinner,
Yes.
come to an event. So it'll be fun to meet in person and hang out.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.